My name is Iniobong, and I'm from Ikot Oduma, a small village nestled in Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. I never believed in curses, or at least I didn't before now. Growing up, I always thought our family's problems were just bad luck. Life wasn't always fair, right? At least that's what I told myself over and over again. But after everything I've been through, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. There is something darker at work in our lives. I got to discover the truth the day I met her, the woman who changed everything. It was an ordinary day, or at least it should have been. I was at the market trying to clear my head after another blow. My boss, who had been promising me a promotion for months, gave me a sack letter instead. No reasons, no explanation, just like that, I was out of a job. I felt like my world was crumbling. You see, this wasn't the first time bad luck had struck me or my family. My elder brother Okon lost everything he owned in a single day. He was once a successful businessman, but now he wanders the streets talking to himself. My younger brother Udwak had won a scholarship to study abroad, but he never made it there. He has been bedridden for years with a sickness no doctor can explain. And now, me, no job, no hope. Was it all just coincidence? As I stood in line at the fruit stall, I noticed a woman at the next vendor store. She was arguing with a fruit seller, looking embarrassed. I heard her mumbling something about losing her money. The vendor was growing impatient and people were starting to stare. Without thinking, I stepped forward. "Let me pay for her," I said, handing the vendor the money. The woman turned to me, her face a mix of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. But there was something else in her voice, something unsettling. "You have a kind heart," she added. I smiled, ready to leave, but then her eyes fixed on me, dark, sharp eyes that made my skin crawl. "But kindness won't save you from what is coming," she said, her voice low, almost like a warning. I frowned, unsure of what she meant. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to shake the strange feeling creeping over me. She leaned in closer, her voice a whisper. "There is a curse over your family." My heart skipped a beat. "A curse? What are you saying?" She kept her gaze locked on mine, her voice steady and cold. "It is because of something your mother did. The misfortune that befalls your family, they aren't accidents. You and your brothers are paying the price for our sins." I felt my stomach drop. My mother? My mother couldn't be the cause of all this. I shook my head. "You are wrong," I said. "We just have some bad luck." The woman shook her head slowly, her eyes never leaving mine. "You don't have to believe me, but your mother is the reason all of this is happening, and unless she confesses, the suffering will continue." Confess? Confess to what? "There are two ways to break the curse," she continued, her voice growing more intense. "You can confront your mother and force her to confess, but if you do, she will lose her mind. Madness will consume her, and death will stay far away from her." My heart pounded in my chest. My mother lose her mind? Or, she went on, "you can find the truth for yourself. Investigate, discover the secrets she has been hiding, and only then will you know what to do." I stood there shaking, the weight of her words pressing down on me. But how? How do I even begin? She stepped back, her voice growing distant. "That is for you to figure out. But remember, secrets this dark have a way of destroying everyone who touches them." With that, she turned and disappeared into the crowd, leaving me standing there, confused, scared, and very, very unsure of what to do next. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words kept replaying in my mind. A curse? My mother? No, it can't be true. My mother had always been good to us. She raised us with love and care. She prayed for us every single day. But as I lay there in the dark, doubts began to creep in. There were stories my father used to tell about how my mother came into his life. She wasn't always his wife. She was once the help in his house, taking care of his first wife, Amen, and their children. My father's first wife, Amen, had been loved by everyone. She was kind, gentle, and good. But she fell ill, and when she passed away, my father married my mother. It made sense back then. My mother had been the one taking care of the house and the children. She stepped into the role naturally. But then, thinking back, I realized there was so much I never questioned. What if? What if my mother's role in Emem's death wasn't as innocent as we all thought? The next morning, I made a decision. I wasn't ready to confront my mother, not yet. But I needed answers. If she was hiding something, I had to find it. When my parents went out to the market that day, I sneaked into my mother's room. My heart was pounding in my chest as I searched through her things. I felt guilty, like I was betraying her, but I couldn't ignore the strange feelings in my gut. After what felt like hours of searching, I found a small wooden box hidden under some old clothes. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were old letters, photographs, and at the bottom, a journal. My mother's journal. I hesitated for a moment, knowing that whatever I found inside could change everything, but I couldn't turn back now. I opened the journal and began to read. I couldn't bear to watch him love her. The journal began. He was always so kind to her. I was just the help, watching from the sidelines, invisible. But I needed him. I loved him. I had to have him. As I flipped through the pages of the journal, my heart pounded. My mother's words grew darker, more desperate. She looked so frail, so weak, and it gave me a strange satisfaction. I didn't think I had it in me to cause her harm, but every day she grew weaker, and every day he grew closer to me. He would come to me with his sorrow, leaning on me for comfort, and I could feel his heart turning in my favor. So I kept going. The tears in my eyes boiled the words on the page, but I forced myself to keep reading the journal. There were days when I almost stopped. The journal continued. The guilt would wash over me like a wave, and I would feel sick to my stomach. But then I would see her laying there, so delicate, so close to death, and I would remind myself that once she's gone, my life would be perfect. I would be his. I would finally be more than just the help. Her words felt like knives in my chest. She cried out in pain that night. The journal continued. I stood outside the door listening. I didn't go in. I knew it was almost over. It was strange how calm I felt. When they told me she had passed, I didn't shed a tear. Instead, I felt free. I felt powerful. I dropped the journal, my hands shaking. My mother, my own mother, had killed someone. She had poisoned so she could have my father. All this time, I had thought she was a good woman, a woman of God, a woman who prayed for her children. But she had murdered someone, and now we are all paying the price. In that moment, I understood everything. The woman at the market had been right. Our family's misfortunes weren't just bad luck. The madness that took Okon, the sickness that crippled Udwak, my own job loss and heartaches, they were all consequences of what my mother had done. We were cursed, and the curse would not end until my mother confessed. But how could I confront her now? If I force her to confess, the curse would only grow stronger. The woman had warned me. My mother would lose her mind if she confessed. But if I stayed silent, the curse would continue, and we would all suffer even more. I was trapped. No matter what I did, someone would pay the price. How would my father take the news of my mother's evil deed? Would he still see us as his children after knowing our mother killed his beloved wife? Would he still show us that fatherly love? Or would his feelings for us turn to hate because of our mother's reaction? The days passed, and I carried the weight of my mother's secrets alone. I watched her closely during that time. She seemed so peaceful, so at ease, praying every day, asking God to heal Udwak, fasting for our family's well-being. But now I saw through her. She was hiding something terrible behind those prayers. One evening, as we sat together for dinner, I couldn't hold it any longer. "Mama," I said quietly, my hands shaking, "can I ask you something?" She looked at me, smiling warmly. "Of course, my dear. What is it?" My heart pounded in my chest, my hands trembling as they rest on the edge of the table. What really happened to Emem? What happened to Papa's first wife? Her smile flattered. She stared at me for a moment, her face growing pale. "Why are you asking about that now, Iniobong?" she asked, her voice soft but tense, her eyes wide with panic. I need to know the truth," I said, my voice trembling. "I found your journal, Mama." Her eyes widened in shock, her hand flying to her mouth. You read it?" I nodded, tears welling in my eyes, threatening to spill over. "I know everything, Mama. I know you poisoned her." For a moment, the room was filled with a heavy, suffocating silence. My mother's face crumpled and she collapsed onto a chair, her body trembling as sobs racked her free. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," she cried, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to go so far. I just wanted him to love me. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." I stood there, numb, watching the woman who had raised me fall apart in front of me. The woman who had loved me, cared for me. She was also the woman who had killed someone out of jealousy. She had destroyed lives for her own selfish desires. And now, her sins were tearing our family apart. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "I thought if Emem was gone, everything would be better. I thought your father would finally see me. But I didn't know it would lead to this." Her words twisted in my heart like a knife. I wanted to hate her, but all I felt was sadness. She had destroyed herself just as much as she had destroyed us. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, lost in my thoughts. The curse was real, and it wouldn't end until my mother confessed. But if I pushed her too far, madness would take her. the woman at the market had warned me. I couldn't let that happen. But how could I stay silent? If I did nothing, the curse would continue to destroy us. Okon was already gone. Uduak was still sick. And my own life felt like it was falling apart at the seam. I was stuck. No matter what I did, there would be suffering. And what about my father? How would he react to knowing the truth? He had loved deeply. She was the mother of his first children, the woman everyone admired. How would he handle the fact that my mother, the woman he trusted, had taken Mm's life? Would he still see me and my brothers as his own? Or would his love for us fade, replaced by bitterness and disgust over what our mother had done? I felt a deep ache in my chest. I couldn't bear the thought of losing my father's love, of seeing that warmness in his eyes disappear. But I also couldn't bear to watch my family continue to suffer because of a secret that was poisoning us all. That night, I stood outside my mother's room, my heart pounding. I could hear her inside, praying softly, asking for forgiveness. She was asking God to heal us all, but I know the truth. The only thing that could heal us now was a confession. But I couldn't bring myself to knock on the door. What would happen if I confront her? Would she lose her mind? Would she fall apart? Could I live with myself if I forced her to face what she had done? I stepped away from the door, my mind racing. If I did nothing, the curse would continue. My brothers would keep suffering. I would keep losing everything I work for. But if I made her confess, I might lose her forever. Madness, the woman said. Madness would consume her, and I'll be responsible for her breakdown. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't destroy my mother, but I couldn't let the curse destroy my family either. Now, I stand at a crossroad. I don't know what to do. If I stay silent, the curse will keep tearing us apart. If I confront her, I risk pushing her into madness, losing the only mother I have ever known. I can't move forward, but I can't go backward either. Did you find inspiration in Iniobong's journey? If her story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with your friends and family.